on 2 different laptops.
We're live. Sorry. I didn't know it was going to be that big of a problem. We're only 7 minutes late because of Veronica.
I'm the problem, it's me. Isn't that a song?
I mean, it's the story of your life, right?
I'm freaking telling you. I'm absolutely telling you.
Okay,
so, hey,
y'all.
Ladies.
Hello.
We are going to talk about something so fun today.
Like, I doubt it.
Thinks it's fun.
We're like, this is going to be so fun. No, it's not a conversation that a lot of organizations like to have, but I think it is very, very, very important to have this conversation to make sure that you have adequate information and not just following the masses on what a lot of other organizations are doing, because I know that we have heard it a lot. Talking about subcontractors, and believe it or not, a lot of times when we have those conversations, people are breaking the law just because they're not. Yeah, we're talking not only are you breaking the law in regards to the labor laws, but the IRS. So we're talking like a double whammy, put your butt in jail. You know,
Bro.
could be.
Bro,
Yeah.
bro, I got a letter from the IRS the other day. 8% APR until I pay them bastards.
Oh, yeah.
That ain't cool, man.
Just could you imagine if you were a company? Because that's higher.
Yeah.
And usually it's penalty per day.
Oh, you're killing me.
Yeah. So like it's no joke. So I'm really glad Tiffany was able to jump on this, because Tiffany kind of comes from a totally different avenue, I guess, per se. Tiffany, why don't you go ahead and like
industry
our conversation earlier?
What avenue are you on, girl?
So I'm on this avenue now, but I did come from working with entrepreneurs on tax strategies, helping people set up entities and use multi-entity strategies, connecting them with attorneys and CPAs and such things. And a lot of times our CPAs or CFOs would work on a fractional basis, which is like an as-needed basis versus a salary basis, which was another great service for the entrepreneurs that couldn't, pay that CEO salary right out the gate. So in my, 8 years doing that, I always worked with other independent contractors as an independent contractor myself. That can look a lot of ways, because you can call yourself an independent contractor and be a sole proprietor, LLC, what have you, right? But what I mean by it is that I haven't had a W-2 position since, shortly after my early 20s. So not to age myself, but yeah, so we're
you don't have to worry about aging yourself when I'm on this call, because it is clearly.
I like to make sure that people still think I'm just a 12-year-old, because
you
do look like a 12-year-old. I know, right? I kind of sound like one on recording, so I try not to.
Well, until you actually start talking, and then you're like spitting all this like education, and I'm like, girl,
knowledge,
I don't even know you.
I wish I was a 12-year-old and knew this stuff, because that would just be insane. But so, coming from that background, I've always been really passionate about encouraging that independent contractor relationship, because when I would bring new people into my sales team, instead of hiring them and figuring out all of their financial responsibility and making it my own and all those things, I could say, hey, look, let's sit down, let's set you up with your business entity. Let's create a contract for how we're going to work together. And then I can encourage you to be autonomous and to take responsibility for your own things, because you're the one that's going to make you money or not make you money at this point, right? So I would spend time with them, but there was never like you can't really demand anyone show up to specific trainings. You can't say like, hey, you have to spend these certain hours somewhere, or you have to provide the results, but the way I want them provided. There's a lot more freedom there. So I kind of had this discussion earlier with a fence contractor that I know that has ran a successful, highly successful fence business over the last 35 years. And with all my passion towards promoting that independence, I know this particular company not to have any subcontractors. So I just had to figure out for myself, like, what's the difference there, being newer to the fence industry and still learning, the different companies and how they all operate together. I had to figure out, why is it not necessarily always workable, or, like you said, legal, depending on how things are being done, to have a bunch of subcontractors out building your fence versus having employees.
Right. So one of the key points that you said, and I'm really so glad you said it, is you've established the relationship between yourself and the subs or 1099. I even hate using the word 1099 employees, because that's such a contradiction. You either have a 1099 subcontractor or you have an employee. There's no such thing as a 1099 employee. And if I am wrong about that, please somebody send me that verbiage and that directly off of the IRS and the labor board website, so I can educate myself. But I can tell you that in all the research and all the years that I've been doing this, there's no such thing as a 1099 employee. Okay?
It's one of those phrases that muddies.
I'm going to go find it. It is now my life's journey to prove you wrong.
Her shit, okay?
Okay. So, but the first thing you said was you establish your relationship. So we hear this quite often in this industry, that I have subs and that relationship is established. Okay. Is it? Because there's a whole list of requirements that says absolutely yes or absolutely no. And when you go through that list, all 20 of them, by the way, the IRS has a 20-page list that you can go through. Do you have to meet all 20 requirements? No. That's the great thing about the IRS and the Department of Labor, is they kind of leave this open. But there are some major key points that you have to hit. You have to establish your relationship. And how do you establish that? So subcontracts that are project specific, that is your number one. And you actually have to share in the profit and loss gamble with your subs. So you have to be able to provide them the information. You have to tell them, hey, I need your bid. What can you do this job for? If they go over that or they go over under that, that's on them. That's on their establishment. Just like, those of us that do commercial work, when we provide our bid, or even residential, we share in that risk, right? It's our numbers are our numbers. And if we go over, I can't go back to the homeowner and say, oh yeah, Miss Jones, sorry, we way underbid this. I need another $5,000. I can't do that.
You can, but it doesn't look good.
Well, yeah. So you share in that profit and loss gamble. That's one thing. You cannot, under any circumstance, and I want to scream this from the rooftops, tell your subs when and where to be somewhere. If you're telling them to report to the job at 8 a.m., they are not a sub, they are an employee. And you are breaking the law.
Stop it. That's so silly, though.
If you are telling a subcontractor they have to work until 5 p.m., under no circumstances are they allowed to leave till 5 p.m., you are breaking the law. You have mucked those waters left and right. Now, if your subcontract is right, you can say hours of operation are, and your deadline for completion is, and that's all you can say.
Hold on. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, a lot of times they've offered that in their bid, right? They say, hey, I'll get it done at this cost in this time frame. And that plays
Sometimes you don't. Sometimes it's a matter of when you're getting that contract established and you're writing that contract, you're going to put that in the contract to your subs. Just like as organizations, we're putting those things, we get those contracts from our general contractors, and it says in there, hey, I don't give two craps when you get this done. Here's when you can have site access, and it's got to be done by this date. And if it's not, you better have a really good reason why, or we're going to penalize you for those in the commercial world, liquidated damages, which we can get into that in a minute, because that can be the same thing in this case.
So we have actually done a couple of different projects where it just seems to me like when you're working for a GC, they always have like the fence part towards the end of the project,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And by then, they're already behind. The GC is already behind on turning over this project, and they want us out there like this. It just happens to us like every single time we take on a project. And again, you have to also, like Veronica says, you have to state it when you sign that contract with this GC. You have to look over the terms 100%, because they will have exactly, like she said, deadlines and when it needs to be completed. If it's completely out of the question, then you redline that and you say, I can't do it, period.
Right. But so this is like really when we start to establish these relationships, it needs to be very black and white that there are two different companies. Okay. So we've talked about establishing the relationship. So we have a subcontract in place. We have documented this. So then let's talk about the documents that are required to go with your subcontract. They need to have general liability insurance because they're running a business.
Yes.
Okay. And then they also, to the insurance, then you need to have the appropriate tax documents, which is your W-9. So every subcontract, let's say that we subcontract Tiffany and your establishment for 5 different projects, even though it's going to be 5 different files. So I need your W-9 5 different times. I need your certificate of insurance 5 different times that's specific to that project, because your insurance is also going to help cover us, the general contractor, and the owners, as well as anybody else that's involved. If there's investors involved, sometimes you have to provide them as additional insured. Okay. So now you're requiring all that information. And who's going to pay for that out of pocket? Well, if you're an independent contractor, yeah, you are.
Stop it.
Yes. So let's talk about this. I'm not paying employee tax. Okay? I'm not, because I don't have employees. I have mucked the waters on the relationships, and I have put 100% of this back on you. Not only are you going to pay for that, you also, no Social Security, no work comp, none of it.
It's all on you.
So basically what I'm hearing right now, like the pro to going through a subcontractor is kind of, it limits your liability to an extent, but it also, the downside is it also limits you on how much you're allowed to like require of them. If it's not written in your contract, specifically exactly your layout, like you could kind of also get really screwed here.
Okay.
Not only that.
Yeah, so, let's talk about that some more.
There's more.
There's more.
We're not done yet.
Oh no. Oh, we haven't even like touched the tip of the iceberg.
Stop it.
If you are providing a truck for these subcontractors, okay? Let's say, yeah, you can come use my truck, you can come use my skid steer, you can come use all my tools. And you don't have the appropriate documentation that backs up your relationship. You have an employee, not a subcontractor. And what does that look like? Okay, well, now I need a lease for the vehicle. Now I want a certificate of insurance for my lease, for my vehicle. I want you to pay for the registration, or to make sure that in your lease that you're going to pay me to use my truck is all covered in there. Because if you, as an independent contractor, get into an accident heading to the job site in my pickup, my insurance isn't going to cover that. Yours is. Because if my insurance covers it, then once again, this is not an employee or a subcontractor relationship. Look for the companies that are $10 a foot. Okay, let's talk about this. This is my jam. You guys, like, this is like...
I know Steve very well, by the way. He's actually in this area in South Louisiana. So,
okay. So
be nice to him.
All right. So let's talk about pay. Let's talk about wages. If you have a subcontractor that is charging per foot, it is not a subcontractor. This is where that term 1099 employee gets thrown around exactly in this scenario right here is, well, I charge $10 a foot. That's fantastic. Where's your bid? Where is that in a contract? Because
insurance.
Yes. Where's all your stuff?
Where's all your stuff?
Because now you got it. I don't, even if you are using your own tools, even if you do have your own truck, even if you have your own equipment, that's fine. But how you're being paid, if you are being paid daily, weekly, or monthly, that is not job specific. You are an employee, not a subcontractor. And who you are working for is doing things illegally. And if they get busted in an audit, guess who else is going to get busted in an audit? All the subcontractors that are underneath them.
Yeah. Those audits, if you do get busted in that audit, it's a really high fine. One of the gentlemen I was talking about this morning, he did, when he first started off, didn't understand all of this, did have some muddied waters as far as like having subcontractors, but they didn't have their autonomy. They would use his vehicle or his tool or whatever for the job. Not just, the most key critical thing I keep hearing in any kind of business, but especially this, is that paper trail, documenting every little piece of the pie, right? But he got hit with an audit, and they were able to prove to him that, like, hey, you're doing this wrong, and it nearly bankrupted the company. It took time to come back from that, and that was with a small company. Now he's like a multi-crew, large, successful company. If he were to get hit with the same thing, it would take him the rest of his life to pay those fines.
And he's probably really lucky that it wasn't a double whammy with the Department of Labor as well, because those subcontractors that were proven to actually should have been employees, they could have easily then gone to the Department of Labor and said, I want to file suit against this guy. And the Department of Labor is then going to turn around and climb right up his butt with the IRS.
Yeah.
Because once there's a formal complaint to the Department of Labor, it's there. And it's public knowledge, pretty much.
Something you don't want to mess with is wages.
No.
Okay. So let's go like even more simple than the whole conversation we're having. Because obviously, like, I'm not on this side of the world, right? Let's say I'm a fence company, I'm newer, but I want to become a subcontractor. What are the things that I should be doing as a business jumping into that world to cover my butt and protect my employees?
Okay, so first and foremost, let's talk, like Tiffany, she's done a few lives on here. Get your entity structured, get with a CPA, get with an attorney, make sure that you have your company and your organization established. Make sure that you have general liability insurance, make sure you have vehicle insurance, make sure you have work comp, make sure you have unemployment. These are all legal things to start an organization. Now, when you're doing that and let's say your organization then wants to become a sub for SWI, okay? And we have a project that we don't have the manpower to handle. And so we're looking for some subs to help us out. You have an obligation to your team to make sure that they're being directed, led, and influenced by you, not by SWI. Okay. So you then become the protector. You're the one who's saying, hey, don't go out to my guys and tell them you're going to run him off because he was 20 minutes late. That's not your place. And, that's not how we're doing this. And that at any given point, they're going to muck the waters. Then you want to make sure that in your subcontract, it is very clear what that relationship is. So you have grounds to go back and say, hey, this relationship is not what we signed in this piece of paper. Absolutely. We have obligations. You told us we could get site access this date. You didn't care if we worked on Sunday morning at 6 a.m. As long as this project was done by this date at this time, it doesn't matter. So just making sure now, if your subcontract states that your working hours are Monday through Friday from 8 to 5. Now, that does not mean you are required to be on site Monday through Friday from 8 to 5. Okay, that's telling you working hours. They're going to permit you to be on location during those hours, whether it be noise or whatever else. So making sure that you know what those laws are on the difference between a subcontract and an agreement and an employee based, and making sure that who you're working for is not mucking in that water. Now, here's another thing I want to touch base on this, especially in this industry, is materials. Because this is where a lot of people kind of get a little misconstrued as well. Providing materials for the subs to install. Okay. This is where a lot of people think there's this big gray line that goes down this alley, and it's not. There's no gray line at all. It's very black and white. In your subcontract, you should state that no materials will be provided. Or will be provided. If you're hiring a sub, all materials will be provided. Tools, equipment, anything additional to complete the installation will be upon the sub, right?
Unless, like you said,
I feel
there's fees for those things. Also.
Unless you've got lease agreements, then that's a totally different thing. But at that point, you might as well just hire him as an employee, because the amount of CYA that is recovered on or required on every single one of these documents, on every single project, on every single sub, you might as well just pay the tax. Like, just quit trying to screw people over and hire them as employees and buck it up, because you've ultimately made like 50 times the amount of work for yourself to save a penny. But in all reality, if you get busted, you're going to be forking out $100 bills.
Which is the reason why we have in the past tried, but it just never works out. And maybe a couple times we've tried. I was telling Tiffany before the show, it's just so much work that goes into it that it's just easier to hire them as employees, which is what we've done. And
so there are times, and dear, I'm sure you can, when you're dealing with big commercial projects, there's times where there's certain scopes of work that fall underneath your umbrella.
Sure.
And you have subs. But again, first and foremost, the first thing you do is get a bid and you establish that relationship. We do have currently, I have another fence contractor that is currently a sub under SWI for a project, but that relationship is crystal clear. Like, it is crystal clear. Anything, any change orders, any amendments, any additions, any, time extensions, all of that is treated exactly the way that it is with our general contractor.
Yeah.
And that's a CYA.
What we've done in the past is, let's just say we need laborers to go out there and dig and stuff. We've actually hired through like a temp agency.
Yes.
Where they pay all the taxes. You do pay a slightly higher wage per hour, but they're responsible to have all their insurance and everything in place. So
sorry. Yeah, I was going to say, way back before I started in the tax strategies industry, I ran a temp agency. And I would say, on the contractor side, a lot of times when I first started there were changes we made as a temp agency that, had significant impact, not only for our employees, but for our customers. But I would often hear from contractors when I would say, hey, I've got some temps I can send you. They would say something along the lines of, oh, I don't want, temps. They're not committed to the job. They're not going to show up. I'm going to end up paying that few dollars more to get them temporarily. But this is just like a day paycheck for them to go off and do whatever they're going to go do with it. Right. So I think that I don't think it's a bad idea to go through a temp agency. I just think that it's the kind of thing, if you were going to do that, you really would want to vet the temp agency and see, what are you guys doing for your employees? How do you incentivize them to come to my job and be the best employee on the job?
Yes.
Well,
which is typically what we end up having to do is we overstaff ourselves for those days when we need them because we know that half of them are not going to show up. You know?
Yeah. Well, and then you also get into requirements. I know that Las Vegas Fence and SWI, it is a pre-employment requirement for OSHA 10. That is a pre-employment requirement. Do you think I am going to let some temp agency ruin my safety record? Because if I have hired a temp on a site and they get hurt or they do something stupid, guess who gets penalized? This does not go back to the temp agency. This comes right here in my lap. This comes to me. So is it a bad idea? No, but you have to understand the risk.
Well, and I think that goes back to documenting that relationship. Like when you reach out to the temp agency, if you say something like, hey, we need 10 laborers, they're going to send you whoever walked in there saying,
absolutely, Tiffany.
But if you say,
you pay different wages for these people coming in as well, you know, depending on the type of person that's coming in to help you with your workload.
Right. And then again, it comes back to, is that temp agency able to provide, like, do they do headhunting? Can they find you that specialized welder you're looking for? Or, you know, are they going to send you somebody that doesn't wear boots to the job site? Like,
right. So I think this really poses kind of the next question I have. So like, your company is growing. It is time to actually go and find you a subcontractor that you trust. Are there sites for this? How do you build these relationships? How do you find the subcontractor of your dreams? Through the Fence Industry Only page? Like,
yes. Okay, but let's talk about that because there are a few more requirements. So level of instruction. When you pull up the 20 requirements for the IRS and Department of Labor, you're really talking. Okay, so level of instruction. You cannot give them A, B, C, D instructions. Not allowed. That's an employee. Amount of training. If you are training them, they are an employee. They're not a subcontractor. Okay. So you have to make sure they're already established. So if you are looking for those subcontractors out there, these are things you have to know. Degree of business integration. Again, that comes back to that. Are they completely established in their organization? Do they have all their taxes? Do they have all their insurance? Are they established? Extent of personal services. If a particular person performing the work asserts a degree or control that suggests an employment relationship. Okay. So then we get into control of assist. I love this one because if they're controlling, saying, hey, you're 10 minutes late, you're done. Or if they're saying, hey, I'm going to hire you as a sub, but this guy has to work for you. Or they're controlling another sub that's going to be your assistant or your installer for the day. Guess what? It's not a sub relationship. Establishing the relationship. That's right there. It's hard.
Hold on. I got a better one. Keith Pay says the subcontractor of your dreams does not exist. Thank you, Keith.
Yes. I think so. That's something where, Veronica, you're talking about the training. That's something probably the whole fence industry would thank us for. Just plugging that real quick. Like, hey, if, to answer your question, Susan, they want to go be a subcontractor, the very, very first step, even before establishing your entity, go be an employee first and learn what you're doing. Because if you're going to be a real subcontractor, you can't show up and ask people to train you. You need to be well-versed and well-rounded in that skill already.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. Flexibility of schedule. We've talked about this one. We've touched base on it. It is super important. This is, again, where people get these lines crisscrossed and then they're really screwing themselves. Demands for full-time work. This one I love. If you have subcontractors that work for you and they work for only you and you have them so bombarded, they do not have the ability to work for other contractors, they should be an employee. Could they attend a training to learn how to wet, set, no jig, or dry pack?
Like an open to the public kind of training?
Yes. Okay. Or you can charge them. You can create a training event where a relationship is established to teach them how to do things. Okay. But again, that goes back to you have to make sure you're being crystal clear on the relationship. Need for on-site services, requiring someone to work on company premises, particularly in the work to be performed elsewhere, indicates the possible of an employment relationship. If you're requiring them to show up at your office at a certain time every day, again, this goes back to being in control. Sequence of work. This goes back again to control. Requirement for reports. This one is one of my favorites. If you are requiring your subcontractors to report to you daily, they are an employee, not a subcontractor. Black and white. That is super easy. If they have to fill out a daily report and they have to send it to you, they are an employee, not a subcontractor.
Yep.
Method of payment.
This feels like here's your sign.
Yeah.
Or the definition of a redneck.
Yeah, like these are conversations that we actually have. And I know Mark Olson's had this conversation a billion times. I know I have in the OMS trainings that I've done. And people are like, well, that rule doesn't apply to me.
Well, you might be a redneck.
How does it not? And my first questions are, does your sub work for anybody else? Do they use your tools and equipment without a lease? And do you have a contract for every single job they step on? And do you pay them per job? And if you have said no to any of those, you have employees and you're breaking the law.
Yeah.
Y'all, don't be breaking the law because Veronica's coming after you. Hey, real quick,
I'll call you out.
Yeah, she will. You sent me a 20-factor test for independent contractors. What is this piece of paper and what do I need to do with it?
Okay, so this is exactly what I'm reading off of. This came from the IRS's website. I went through and actually highlighted the key points. In this 12 pages, pages 8 through 12 is a basic subcontract.
Okay.
This is not fence industry specific. This is directly from the IRS's site on establishing a relationship for a subcontractor. Susan will link it on how to get it.
Hold on, there's no link here.
Yeah, you have to drop a link.
The link.
No, yeah, you just sent me a PDF. You did not send me a link.
Okay, we'll work on Susan being able to create a link. So that way, Veronica, are you teaching this in Vegas? No, unfortunately, I am not. I would love to, but I will actually not be attending the fence show this year. This was actually something that Susan and I were talking about on an education standpoint, as well as contract review and commercial billing. But unfortunately in 2024, I'm going to miss out. So we can't put me down for 2025. I am always open for this topic. This is one that I am very, very, very passionate about and obviously have done extensive research on trying to find those loopholes. Because if anybody can find a loophole, it's me. I don't like rules. I like loopholes. But there's no loopholes in this one. So there's more points in this. I know that we are running out of time. Susan's going to cut me in. But please,
it's just getting boring for me.
Take the time, read through the documents.
It is. And if you need it, just shoot one of us a message. We'll get it out to you. We all have it. Like she said, it's a 12-page document, a 20-factor test directly from the IRS website on subcontracting. It's not specific to the fence industry, but it is specific to documentation through the Internal Revenue Services.
Yeah. Could you imagine all the other stuff they're doing illegally? Yes. That is probably, and here's the thing is everybody that I've talked to that either is a sub that should be an employee or organizations that have hired subs who should be employees, they really have great intentions. I've never had anybody be like, yeah, I know I'm not doing that. I don't care. That's their fault, not mine. You know, I've got my money right now and they really do have good intentions. They just don't have the knowledge or somebody in the background going, hey, this isn't right. you know, or want to fix it. A lot of times, oh, we've been doing it for 10 years. Why would we fix it now? Well, I would suggest you be quiet. Shut your mouth, have a seat, and don't tell anybody, because one of these days you're going to piss somebody off, and guess who's going to get reported?
Right.
Andrea, I'm completely bummed as well that I will not be at the fence show this year. Like it's super
but
sad.
for 2025, our fence show is not during your wedding, so that's positive.
That's very good news, because then I would have 2 years without going to the fence show.
Right. On a completely different note, thank you guys for showing up and having this conversation today. I do think there is time for a part 2 on this topic. I do think we need to come back and rediscuss it again to make sure that people have, you know, if they have any questions, we can address them, because I'm sure they'll come up later. They usually do. That being said, on Tuesday, September 10th, after demo days, there will be a kickoff party inside of the Casino Hotel, a Boots and Booze event. I cannot wait. I'm so excited. Yadira, are we having a band?
We're having a DJ.
Stop it. Are we having alcohol?
Oh yeah, you know it.
Are there going to be finger foods?
Yes, there is going to be finger foods.
Tiffany, are you going to be there?
I sure am, champ.
Yes, I'm excited. So we're going to have a dance floor. It's going to be a great networking event. Come by, get to know everybody, hang out. Come give Brian a hug. He loves hugs, y'all.
Brian does.
Walk up and hug him.
Group hugs, like where you surround him and then you hug him all at once.
Yes.
Like Brian loves them.
Yes. Like Michaela says, get a snacky when I drinky. You need to register if you are going to the Homeland party. It's been posted all over the Fence Show and Security Expo pages. There have been emails that have gone out. Like, you cannot show up at the door and say, hey, I'm Veronica and I'm part of the Fence Industry Only page and I'm an exhibitor at the Fence Show and Security Expo. They're going to say, I'm sorry, your name ain't on the list. So get your name on the list. If you need a QR code to register, just reach out on social media and tag me, tag Women of FWA, tag Tiffany. She knows how to get there.
Absolutely.
We'll have shuttles running. Y'all, I'm so excited. I'm a little nervous. Are y'all nervous? I'm nervous.
You guys are going to kick ass just like you did last year. It's going to be great. Grab his butt when you hug him. He likes that also. Absolutely, he does.
I didn't say that.
I'll read it because I'm not going to be there. Tell Brian Veronica said to do it. What's he going to do? Come to Wyoming? No.
Right. But, Women of FWA are having their happy hour event on Thursday, and their breakout session. It's going to be a really great, awesome. Stop it. She just laughed out loud. Stop it, Michaela. And then Keith. Look, they're having their own side conversation. Like, they need to stop. They need to stop, for real. Other than that, like, if you would like to come on one of our lives, all you have to do is just reach out. Like, we love to have people on, and actually, believe it or not, we find it really hard to find people to come on. So you want to talk about something, come on our show. We'd love to have you. After this, we have the Gatekeepers podcast. That's what, like 7:30 or something. Billy Grove, the man, the myth, the legend.
Yeah.
Tiffany, you got anything before we close out?
No, I don't. I'm just excited to see everybody in person. Excited to get to meet a lot more people this time. And, I don't know. I think we could almost do a whole mini series on this topic, going over 20 things, right? If each one could have a 10 or 15 minute conversation around it, then you have I was looking up specific to the fence industry, the subcontractors versus employees conversation, just to try to, sharpen my wit, because I was familiar with it from my previous experience, hardcore pro independent contractor, right? Like, get them in business for themselves, let them taste that freedom, all that stuff. But it's different, I think, probably for every industry. So I was just looking to try to find more fence specific knowledge, and there is not a lot of content out there. Joe Everest has a couple of great ones on getting started in the fence business, and some of the other podcasts have kind of touched on it, but there's nobody out there drilling down on some of these cold, hard, facts.
Which is why I was like, hey, let's do this. So, like, I really want to challenge and would love somebody to challenge my knowledge in this topic. Some people that are out there that have all these subcontractors that feel like there's this loophole or this gray area or a topic that we did not touch on. I would love to have an open conversation, not to have a battle or any of that, but to really be able to get into the nitty gritty of these requirements. And are there loopholes? What are these exceptions? Because all of our years in this industry and all of our knowledge in this industry, we can't seem to find one. Yadira, I know that, all of your years in this and all of the conversations that we've had with other organizations that only hire subs, they're out there and they think they've got those exceptions. I'd be really interested to have conversations.
Yeah. It would be
awesome.
Here.
You got anything to say before we close out, Yadira?
No, other than we're always looking for ladies to come on our lives, topics.
And men.
And men, absolutely. This is not just limited to the ladies. We're just going to dominate it.
Yes. So I think we have a couple of good ones coming up. Next week we are doing permits and licensing and all that stuff. So if you are passionate about that, or you have any input, or you want to just come and chat with us, please come on. I think after that it's going to be closer to the show, so we're going to be doing some check-ins with the women of FWA, and you're also welcome to come in and check in on that one.
Veronica, anything before we close out?
Thank you, guys. Thanks for taking your time this evening. Thanks to everybody that has commented, who watched, who jumped in. This is why we do these conversations, making sure that everybody is set up. Keith, happy birthday. Do you say tomorrow? I actually just had my birthday last Monday. So those Leos out there, thank you guys for coming on. I will miss all of you during the Fun Show. I'm sure that if you run into any of the women of FWA and you're wanting to say hi, have them pick up their phone. They will FaceTime me. I will gladly, who knows, you could walk up to any of them and we'll already be on the phone.
Yes. Okay, you guys.
For sure.
We'll see you next week. We love you guys. Thank you for showing up.